I wanted to come to you by video to talk to you a little bit more specifically about the literary analysis paper. Many students find this paper to be one of the most challenging assignments in this course, and I thought it might be helpful to spend a little bit more time going over the expectations and explaining the assignment in more detail. So I want to start by talking about what we mean by literary analysis. And just as the words describe, analysis means a careful evaluation, a critique, an observation that goes in depth. So just as you might do an analysis of numbers or an analysis in science of, say, a plant or some kind of animal as you dissect it and pull it apart, you're evaluating it, you're writing down notes, you're taking down that information. The same is true when we do an analysis of a piece of literature. So a literary analysis is really an in-depth, dig in, pull it apart, take it apart analysis of literature. So that's what this week's assignment is really all about. For this assignment, you get to choose between two short stories that are found in our textbook. You either get to choose The Story of an Hour, which is written by Kate Chopin, or a short story called The Lottery, which is written by Shirley Jackson. Both stories were written very early in the 20th century, and both women were considered to be controversial writers, both at the time they were writing and even today. So that should give you a little bit of insight and background about what you might uncover as you're doing this analysis. Let's talk about the assignments as they appear on the Session tab. When you go to the Session tab under Readings, you're going to see two sets of notes that the university has added to the assignment. And both of these notes are there to help you. The first is a list of 10 literary terms. And I would encourage you to look at this list and refresh your memory about how to speak about literature. The definitions of literary terms such as plot, characterization, setting, and all those types of pieces so that you understand how to talk about literature when you're writing your paper. The second set of notes is both listed under reading and it's also linked directly under the assignment for the literary analysis paper, and it is titled Literary Analysis. This is a list of questions that provide a great starting point for literary analysis. However, answering this list of questions is not the literary analysis assignment. These questions are here to get you started, to get you thinking about the piece of literature. In fact, many of the questions on that set of notes don't directly apply to either short story. In terms of audience or facts presented, those types of questions, they don't actually relate to the two-story options. But those notes are there to help you with analysis of all different kinds of writing. Analysis you might do of a news article, or other types of writing. So those are helpful questions to get you started as you think about how to do a literary analysis paper. The first thing I would encourage you to do is to read one of the stories very early in the week. Please don't put this off because it is an assignment that requires just a lot of thinking and processing in order for you to be successful in this assignment. So my first piece of advice would be to sit down with the textbook very early in the week, Monday or Tuesday, and skim through both stories, decide which one you prefer, and read it. Take 20 to 30 minutes to read each of the story, or whichever story you choose, and let it just kind of simmer in your thinking. You'll be amazed at how what you read will just kind of circle in your thoughts throughout the week, particularly if you're thinking about it. And as you think about it throughout the week, go back to the story a second time and read it a couple days later. The second time you read it, I would really encourage you to look again at that list of critical questions from the literary analysis notes and also start adding your own thoughts. Circle sections that you think are confusing. Start making those connections and actually writing in your text, which is called annotating your text. Underline words, underline passages. Make notes about something that reminds you of something else that you've studied or something else that you've read. If you have questions, mark question marks in the margin. Start looking for patterns in your thinking. What are parts of the story that continue to give you question? Or what are parts of the story that you think are particularly interesting or that paint an interesting picture for you as the reader in your mind? And then start asking the question, why? For example, you might notice if you're reading The Lottery that Jackson refers to certain rituals over and over and over again. If you make note of this, you might just start asking why. And then if you answer that part of your question, then ask why again. Why does she write it that way? Why does she refer to the people this way? Why does she give the characters these names? You can do the same with the story of an hour. Why is she left alone? Why is she responding this way? What is she really thinking? And as you keep asking those questions and then ask the next layer of questions and keep pushing yourself to ask why, you're going to start to come up with some really interesting analysis and some really interesting ideas about what you think and how it all fits together. The goal is after you read the story about 3 times, which is what it really takes to kind of get those notes and those ideas, come up with a thesis statement. For this paper, I really am going to be looking for a concrete, coherent thesis statement. And remember, based on the Belford Guide, a thesis statement is the topic plus your opinion, position, or attitude on that topic. So for this assignment, the topic is the short story, whichever one you pick, and your opinion on it would be what you think about it. And of course, a good analysis will be something deeper than is a good story or even a powerful story. A good analysis thesis statement will include specific reasons why you believe a story to be a certain way. I'm going to post a sample of an introductory paragraph from at least one paper, possibly 2, that I feel like were very well written and well put together, so that you can kind of get a sense what I mean when I'm talking about a solid thesis statement that gives you a real picture of what a literary analysis thesis statement should look like. The other thing I've done, which I started doing when I first started teaching this class, is modeling for you how I would do literary analysis. You'll notice for session 3 that the university has given us the text of Psalm 23 to sort of consider as literature and to kind of frame our discussion about literature. And Psalm 23 is a beautiful psalm. It's a poem. It's a beautiful piece of literature. And so what I've done is broken it apart and completed a literary analysis of it. Just as I'm asking you to do, I read the psalm 3 different times. Of course, I've read it hundreds of times, but looking at it as a piece of literature and analyzing it, I looked at it a little bit differently. And when I did, my paper looked something like this. Notice I've circled things, I've underlined things, I've put notes in the margin. And as I went back and reviewed my notes, I looked for patterns. And that led me to a thesis statement and to a rough outline, an outline that got me started. And then from there, I was able to compose a paper. And for each point in my essay, I used text from the psalm to support my idea or my claim about the psalm. So what I will do is I will post the PowerPoint presentation of the process I went through, explaining exactly how I broke down the psalm and how I wrote the paper. I will also include a link to the actual paper with my notes explaining the thesis statement and showing you in the paper how it's outlined. The goal in all of this is to help you see how literary analysis can be broken down into parts and how it's something accessible for you to accomplish. I don't want this assignment to seem overwhelming, but I hope that it pushes you to that next level of critical thinking as we start to think about problem solving and persuasive assignments. As always, if you have questions, please contact me. I hope you will take time to look at the announcement and to review that PowerPoint on literary analysis and to look at the sample papers and to think through how you might respond to either The Lottery or to The Story of an Hour. Both are good stories and they're interesting to read, and so I hope it goes well for you. I look forward to reading your papers. Take care.